Hi there, my name is Kelly Herbig. I am a virtual content specialist for special education, social studies grades 3 through 5. And today I'm going to talk about how we can use word parts to teach vocabulary. So we can use the parts of tier 2 vocabulary words to help pre-teach really important vocabulary words before we teach one of our social studies lessons from the Passport curriculum. Doing this will help students see things like prefixes, suffixes, and root words. So, why should we use this strategy to teach vocabulary? Well, it helps students learn those prefixes, suffixes, and root words so that they can use them in the future. It helps them use this in the future. So, just by knowing these prefixes, these suffixes, these root words, when they see them again in a different word, they'll be able to make that connection and determine the meaning of that word. And it also supports with decoding work. So it helps students break apart a word into parts, which some of your students might still be working on. So this can be just a really helpful way to look at new vocabulary. Today, I'm going to be showing you how we can use word parts to support vocabulary understanding by using the Grade 5, Unit 3 Westward Expansion Unit. However, I do want to say that you can use this strategy in any grade level and in any social studies lesson. So before we get started, let's just review the tiered vocabulary. We have tier 1 vocabulary, which students use every day and learn through conversation. We have tier 2 vocabulary words. Those are the more academic words that students will likely encounter across topics and subject areas. And then we have those tier 3 vocabulary words that are very specific to different subjects, words like equation or photosynthesis. When teaching vocabulary, it's really important to try to stick to those tier 2 words. Though in tier 2 words is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck with this vocabulary instruction because they're going to see these words again. Students will likely learn those tier 3 vocabulary words through your lessons and through your teaching, but these tier 2 vocabulary words, it's really important to focus in on those before a lesson, help students gain an understanding of it so that they can access the lesson better and so that they can now add a new word to their personal dictionary. And when they see it again in another lesson or in another subject area, they'll have an understanding of that word. So to start, I'm just going to go through some slides from this lesson, and we're going to look for some words where we can use word parts to teach them. So here it says, consider the pros and cons of remote learning. Pros and cons mean the advantages and disadvantages of something. Take a few minutes to consider the pros and cons of learning while you're at home via the internet and jot down some ideas on the next slide. So the first words that stick out to me are the words advantages and disadvantages because they actually have the same root word, and disadvantages just has this prefix dis on it. So this is actually a really great learning opportunity to teach into this prefix. Let's keep looking for some more vocabulary words. As you can see from this activity, it can be hard to decide if something is all good or all bad. These are gray areas. Most things can be both good and bad. Think about what you have learned about westward expansion in the United States so far this unit. Based on your learning, do you think that westward expansion is all good or all bad or somewhere in between? So looking at this portion, I'm immediately looking at this word expansion. Now, realistically, at this point in the unit, hopefully you would have taught into this word and your students would know what it means. But for the purposes of this lesson, I want to act as if maybe students need some teaching into on this word expansion, or as if it's the first time they're coming across it, because there's some really valuable parts of this word that we can teach our students. I also just want you to notice how I'm not teaching westward expansion as a phrase because that would be a tier 3 phrase. It's very specific to a subject area. But if I teach into expansion, which is a tier 2 vocabulary word, a word they'll likely see in other subject areas, it will support them in understanding the phrase westward expansion. So to do this with my students, I would make a really clear slide or board, just asking what word parts do we see. For advantage and disadvantage, I would present advantage with the definition. So it's like a benefit or to be in a better position. And here I have disadvantage. At this point, I might actually ask or tell my students that dis means not or none. So I'm explicitly teaching them that when they see this word dis, the beginning of a word, it often means not or none. At this point, I might even have my students turn and talk. How does the prefix dis change the meaning of the word? This will give students a chance to interact and think about what's happening. Because here I see advantage and here I see advantage, and the only difference is that this has the word dis in front of it. So, how does that change the meaning of this entire word? This is a really great turn and talk for your students. You might even have them try out writing their own definition based on this prefix so that they can interact a little bit more with how that prefix changes the whole meaning of the word. This is a really great example of how to look at two words that are opposites and how the prefix changes the meaning. The next word is the word expansion. There are a couple different parts in the word expansion that I think are worth teaching into. First, we have this prefix X. X means out, out of, or from. So I would give that to students. I would specifically teach them that X means out of, or from. And then I might teach them that shun, S-I-O-N, is like this means the state or the quality. So based on this knowledge, knowing that this means out or from, and this means the state or quality, then, I might ask my students to turn and talk. Based on this prefix and suffix, what do you think the word expansion means? So when students are discussing this, they might be discussing, well, maybe this word means like the quality or the state of being from somewhere or going out, which is really lending itself to the definition of the word expansion and will help students as they understand that phrase, westward expansion, which is really important in the social studies unit. So overall, using word parts is a really great strategy for teaching vocabulary to students with IEPs. It can touch in on decoding goals, vocabulary goals, and it can support students as they find new vocabulary words that they're unsure of. Who knows, maybe the next day they're reading their independent reading book and they see the same prefix or suffix that you taught into the day before in social studies. So this work is really valuable and it doesn't take a lot of time to prep or do. I would stick to 1 or 2 vocabulary words every lesson if you want to try this strategy out. So I hope this video helped and that teaching word parts to your students becomes a really great tool for you as you teach students with special needs.